Workforce development. No matter what business you're in, if you're in business, if you're an employer, you need a workforce. And the way to develop that workforce is a key component of anything that you're going to be doing, because if you don't have a qualified workforce, you're out of business. At the end of the day, you have to make a profit. You build your profit off of your workforce. I represent the Department of Labor, the Office of Apprenticeship. Our goal this year is to have 1 million active apprentices. We're around over 700,000 right now. We do that through the Registered Apprenticeship System, which is an earn while you learn process. So you're into building a better economy across the board by developing your workforce. Texas is the 8th largest economy in the world. That's big. And biotechnology is driving a lot of it. So we're here. I'm going to be able to answer any of your questions on how do you develop your workforce, how do you grow your workforce, and we'll work on it from there.
Great. My name's Larry McManus. I'm with the Governor's Economic Development and Tourism Office. I oversee our business development activities. At the state level, we work with several different state agencies that involve economic development in some form or fashion. The Texas Workforce Commission is the state's workforce entity, and the state model is very decentralized in its approach towards workforce. So there are local workforce boards out there that work with the economic development organizations throughout the state of Texas. In economic development, it is also a decentralized approach towards economic development. There are 1,200 cities in the state of Texas, each one responsible for its own economic growth and strategies and how they develop the workforce. They work with those local workforce boards. The state itself has training dollars, monies available, funding opportunities, as well as at the local levels. And so what we do is we work with companies to assist them to identify those opportunities and work with those local economic development organizations throughout the state of Texas.
And lastly, I'm Ernest Huffman. I work with North Central Texas Council of Governments. We're the Dallas-Fort Worth Region's Metropolitan Planning Organization. We do all transportation planning for the region. Think every mode of transportation you can think of. My primary program area is aviation, so I work with all those aviation silos. We also run an aviation career outreach initiative. So we do aviation career outreach to any sector, any group in the region, and I talk to kids starting at kindergarten all the way up to adults looking for second and third careers. Another piece is because I work with every sector in aviation here in the Metroplex, we're working with all those emerging aviation careers and emerging aviation sectors. That's inclusive of the bioeconomy and sustainable aviation fuels and things of that nature. I'm also working with the unmanned aviation industry to integrate in North Texas, so think drone deliveries, think Jetsons, autonomous flight, air taxis, things of that nature. And every sector in aviation has the same issue that the bioeconomy industry does, and that's building a workforce and competing with the kids' minds on what workforce they join. If they don't know about you, they're less likely to want to be a part of your industry. So what we'll talk about here today is how to increase your presence in outreach to assure that you build that pipeline for your new emerging sectors.
One of the things that I will say about the state of Texas in particular, we do like to brag a lot, okay? We do that. But I can tell you that the Texas Workforce Commission, my Office of Apprenticeship here in the Dallas area, and the regional folks work together. And it's pretty much seamless. We have good cooperation across the board. So even though we are siloed a little bit, we're really not because we work so close together. There's 28 different workforce boards in Texas. I think we have more workforce boards than any other state. And that makes it a little complicated, but it really comes together nice, and we're able to produce a lot of things. Texas is one of the few states that actually has an apprenticeship conference. This will be its 10th year or 11th year that they've actually done a conference, very large conference that just packed the room with a lot of people. But it's all designed for workforce development. The U.S. Department of Labor, we give funding to the state of Texas. The state of Texas use that funding to develop and grow programs. We basically grow the economy by growing the workforce. Any governor will tell you if you don't have a product to sell to companies to come to your state to work, That's the workforce. If you've got a workforce that is developed, that's where they're going. They're not going to go to a state where there's not a workforce development process and plan in place. We've been very fortunate in Texas because we work very well with each other. So we're kind of siloed, but we're really not, because we do work together so much. And we can give you a list of names up and down the chart of the folks that we work with that works very well within the state.
In Texas, the economic development process and our industry target sectors kind of define which way the state pursues industry and the way it pursues projects. And the workforce becomes a big part of that. When companies or businesses are looking to expand into the state of Texas, one of the key items is there a workforce for me that will be able to address the needs of my business? And so in Texas, we're very fortunate to be very diversified in industry. At one time, we were very, very specific in oil and gas and agriculture, right? And so that's changed. The Governor's Office of Economic Development, and if you haven't visited our website, I encourage you to do so. A year ago, we issued a economic development strategic plan, and that plan was put together by a consulting firm that we hired, and they reached out to our economic development stakeholders, agencies, partners, councils of governments, economic development organizations, and businesses, and visited with them to understand what the lay of the land was here in the state of Texas. And the Council of Governments is a key player. They do an economic development strategy, and our economic development strategic plan incorporated the strategic plans of the councils of governments, our community partners, economic development stakeholders, to kind of give an overview of how the state wants to pursue its economic development activities. And the bioeconomy is part of several of these industries. Advanced manufacturing is one of the target sectors, and so you find bioeconomy, biotechnology activity in there. Energy evolution is another industry, so we see biomass energy, we see renewable energies as part of that. Life sciences and biotechnology are part of that, as well as petroleum and refining chemicals, as the sustainable aviation fuels are as well. So a lot of that kind of dictates what the state is doing. Each of our community partners, economic development organizations, can use that strategy as they develop their own. And of course, each community has its own assets that they want to develop.
And these gentlemen, I'm not from Texas, and they're bragging a lot on Texas. I'm not from Texas. I've lived all over the country in multiple states, multiple centers of multiple metropolitan areas. Texas does have a lot going for them, right? In these emerging industries, you won't find a pipeline developed regardless of where you live, and it might be important for you to develop that pipeline. So here, even in Texas, with all the resources these gentlemen acknowledged, there wasn't a big workforce development pipeline established in the drone industry or in the unmanned aviation industry. I recognize that gap in the workforce in around 2017, 2018 or so, and I took the onus upon myself to create that mechanism, that pipeline, and that's why I met West Jury here in developing that infrastructure. So if you're in an industry, you don't have a pipeline in your particular region, in your town, you may have to be the person to set that up. So be cognizant of that, and tap into the resources that your state has. Workforce Solutions, Workforce Solutions organizations, NCT COG, we have our own Workforce Solutions Board, and there are 13 others in the Metroplex. Your Metroplex may have one as well. Be sure to look that up.
Yeah, we do kind of have an old saying that most people are not born in Texas, but they get here as fast as they can. So, born and raised Texan, proud of it. Hey, I can answer your question on workforce development through the apprenticeship system, how it works, what the benefit is. For an employer, if I was to tell you that I could give you a return on your investment of $1.48 for every dollar you spent, would that be a pretty good investment for you? What about retention? If I told you could retain 80% or 90% of the people that you train or work with, would that be a benefit to you? Absolutely. I mean, it costs about $6,000 for you to employ anybody, to hire them from the first get-go. So if you can retain those people, and you do that through a registered apprenticeship system, it's worked for over 85 years, still works today, and it's going great guns. And we've got a lot of great success here in Texas. We're over 42,000 apprentices here in Texas alone, and that's up from 12,000 about 8 years ago. So we've got a lot going on, and that's because of a lot of the cooperation between the different agencies, with the state, the federal, and the local government. And it really works well, and it's a process that's very simple. I can break any of the myths that you have. If you have any myths about that, we can take care of that today. I can answer those particular questions for you. But great cooperation, Desi Holmes with Apprenticeship Texas as the state director, and we have a new state commissioner, head of the Workforce Commission. Just recently he just came on board about three months ago. Yeah, and he's a dynamite guy. You're going to really enjoy him. So we're here to answer your questions and do whatever we can.
And Dudley's really, we worked with the Department of Labor years ago to establish an apprenticeship model or apprenticeship program with Dallas Community College on drones. And what they do, and he didn't mention it, what they do is they pay a stipend to the students. Hey, how you doing? How you doing? They paid these folks as a 9-month program where they paid these folks for their time to learn about being a professional drone pilot, and then they set those folks up with careers after the fact. And it's one of those things I didn't know about the apprenticeship model. You think of apprenticeships associated with the trades, being a carpenter, electrician, things of that nature. But you can establish an apprenticeship program via the Department of Labor on almost all these disciplines that you guys are thinking of, in particular these emerging industries that we don't have a workforce or a training regimen for. So if you're interested in setting up an apprenticeship program, they fund it. It's a funding mechanism in place, and they're very gung-ho on getting these programs out, so they're easy to work with at this particular time. So I will get with Dudley after today to get some information on those programs, because they work very well.
From a state perspective, and I'm looking at it, 30,000-foot level, we always encourage companies to engage with their economic development directors, the community that has an economic development contact, because those individuals are there to help that community grow their economy. And they become a point of contact for you as a business and help identify the programs that are out there that you could potentially take advantage of. And if they don't know, they can reach out to my group. My team has relationships with state agency partners, TCEQ. They have different tax incentives and financing programs that are available for biotech or biomass or alternative fuel type companies, and incentive programs that the state has for companies as they consider growing and establishing their operations. The economic development director in your community tends to be the best point of contact for you if you're looking for a lot of that. And they become your partner as you grow. So a good economic development organization has its own, what they call a business retention and expansion program, which is, if they're doing it right, they're reaching out to you or reaching out to businesses. And some communities have their own small business programs and their small business funding opportunities as well.
I'm going to take one step back. You talk about the drone industry coming in. That's a new occupation. It's probably 5 years old now, 4 to 5 years old. 3 years ago, here in Texas, we had 8 of the largest hospital districts come to us and say, we've got a problem. We need 50,000 nurses a year, and we're not getting them. We worked through the nursing boards across the country, came up with a plan, came up with a process, and we're now generating a lot of nurses, registered nurses, in the programs. So we're not just construction anymore. That's not where we're at. We're in any industry that you can learn and earn as you go. And so we're in that industry. We're heavy into IT, the marine sectors now, the drones, you name it, we're in it, as long as it's an occupation that you can learn by actively doing it and providing related training and instruction to go along with it to support it, and you can pay for it as you're going. It's a really unique system right now. We got over 1,300 occupations around that we're dealing with now, and they're coming up with new occupations every day. AI is one of them. It's one of the new technologies that's out there that's coming on strong. But nurses, K through 12 teachers, K through 12 teachers. The states were telling us, we got a problem, folks. Nobody's going into the teaching field. We need some people. We need the bodies. We need to train these people. We now have K through 12. Not only K through 12 teachers, K through 12 principals, because school districts are short on vice principals and principals. So we only answer the needs to the industry. We do not decide what occupation we're going to go into. The industry comes to us. We work with them with a proven method of developing a workforce, and that's what we do with the registered apprenticeship system here in Texas in particular. We've got 6.5 more minutes, so.
Anybody have any questions before I?
That's a difficult thing, right? There are credits for low-income housing available to communities and developers and so forth, but it comes down to communities, the ability of the community to engage with that industry, the developers. We've seen it's a little bit easier when there's more population. In a community. When there's less population, then you got to be really, really creative. We've seen where companies have actually invested and become kind of the real estate person for their employees, developing homes in some of the communities. West Texas, out in the Monahans area is what comes to mind. They had to come up with a creative solution for that particular idea. But again, it's going to take several creative ideas from the local economic development folks, the workforce folks, the individuals that are working with the companies to come up with a solution. I don't know that there's an easy way to address that. I don't know if you've seen it in the council.
Yeah, the housing isn't something. The industries I deal with are more on the emerging side, where they're not bringing the amount of employees where they have to worry about housing at this point.
I don't know that I have an answer at the state level. I do know that the Workforce Commission, the Education Agency, the Higher Education Agency, the legislature, and then our office work together to come up with a strategic plan for the labor or for the workforce. It's a workforce strategic plan that the governor's office issues for the future of workforce. The legislature uses that to kind of predict what potentially is needed for future use, what type of financing, funding opportunities for different state agencies. The agencies and their stakeholders will lobby for those type of activities. Whether or not there are any specific programs addressing that issue, I do know that the state does give its focus towards training to ensure that we have productive, skilled workers because we continue to grow. 16 million, almost 16 million people in the workforce here in the state of Texas, very attractive to businesses, and I do know that there's an interest in making sure that our workers are skilled because of that.
Most states that I'm aware of, I deal with 11 states in my region, they all have a system in place where they're funding the registered apprenticeship system at some level. I know the Texas Workforce Commission, I think it's the Chapter 133 funds. It's quite a well-off fund that the commission continues to fund every year. Wes used to be part of that himself years ago. But they're funding it through what's called Chapter 133. Many of the other states have some system for funding the registered apprenticeship system, which helps build the workforce, and building the workforce helps bring in more business, more economy. It grows the economy. We don't tell an employer what you have to pay. The employer tells us what they're going to pay. And I have had to tell the employer before, you're not going to get anything for what you want to pay. You know, when Walmart now, I think their minimum wage is $15 an hour, and you get somebody coming in and say, we want to pay them $7.25, you got a bad business plan, my friend. So you got to pay for the price. It's unfortunate, and we don't drive that. That's the economy. The economy drives that. Okay, so There is a lot of funds out there. The Department of Labor this year put out about $285 million in funding through different grants that we have. And again, we give the monies to the states, and the states administrate it from there. I can't guarantee you I can give you a dime. I'm from the federal government. I can't give you any money at all. It works through the system, but it works well.
And from my perspective, my program's not overly funded, but what I tend to look on is access to these careers in these communities. Access, and the first way I get them to get the access is the education component. If you don't know about these jobs, you won't have the access to these jobs. And in my aviation career outreach, that's the main reason why we run the program, is we understand that a lot of folks in a lot of communities around the region, they don't have the general access to these careers because they don't know anybody and haven't met anybody who does it. In particular with young men who are having issues figuring out what they want to do earlier in life, if I can get folks in front of them that look like them and come from their backgrounds to talk to them about these careers, that gets them the access and the education on how to get the access to these careers. And that's what we're doing on the emerging aviation career side.
Do we have any more questions real quick? We're 6 seconds away, I think. Go ahead. Yeah, we want the industry to come to us because the apprenticeship system is driven by the employer. That's the foundation behind an apprenticeship program. We've had some issues. We do have apprenticeship programs in agriculture with farming and what have you. We actually have a program up in Arkansas where they're developing golf courses and the grasses behind it. We know that with the solar industry right now, they're doing research on what kind of grass do they want under these solar panels, because they're now using double-sided solar panels. So they're catching the light coming in, but they're also catching the light coming off the ground. And it's producing about 18% more energy through these solar panels. So they're doing research in how to do that. You know, what's the best grass to grow? What's the best product to put on the ground below them? So there's a lot out there. We depend on the employer to come to us because, again, we don't have a group of people in D.C. that says, well, we ought to make left-handed widget makers, an apprenticeship program. We got to have the employer. They're the foundation. They're the ones that's going to provide the on-the-job learning. They also provide the pay, because apprenticeship is a pay-as-you-go. It's not it's an earn and learn system. It's not where you go to school for 4 years and end up with $100,000 worth of debt and then you go to work. It's just the opposite. You're being paid while you're doing it. And lifetime earnings is well over $300,000 more by going through the apprenticeship system. Nothing wrong with education. Don't anybody say I said education's bad. I own a lot of bricks at the University of Tennessee because that's where my daughter went to. I got a grandkid. I got 2 grandsons graduated from there. I got a granddaughter that's up in Arkansas right now. So we fund education out of our own pockets. So it's a great thing. So.
Just one last thing on the state side. The Texas Department of Agriculture does support agriculture-related activity. They have a young farmers program that they help fund, but they work closely with the U.S. Department of Agriculture as well. And so both, Temple has the office here in the state of Texas for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and if there's an interest, I would highly recommend going and visiting their websites. There are programs there to help further agriculture-related activity.
Yeah, Wes, I think we're between these folks in the social hour, so.
No, we got one more.
One more.
Oh, okay. Good. We're not the last one then.
You're
Good.
not keeping them from the reception. Let's give these gentlemen a round of applause. Great job.